Aikawa Ayumu is a hopeless sadist who hates sunlight and joy, and he's also a zombie. That aside, he gets hit by Truck-kun as he tries to save a kitten, and then struggles home to meet Euclid Hellscythe, a silent necromancer of the underworld. She doesn't give an F what happened to him and immediately requests dinner. As they eat, she reminds him that she's the reason he's still alive. You see, Aikawa is so pathetic that he needed a girl to bring him back to life. Real men would rather stay dead. Anyway, he now wants to use the opportunity to find who killed him. He gets a call about a serial killer that night and roams the city aimlessly in search of him. Aikawa ends up chilling in his favorite spot, the cemetery. There, a flat-chested excuse for a girl known as Haruna battles a megalo bear and happily cuts him in half as collateral. Megalo are magical beasts that cause havoc, by the way. She's more disgusted than remorseful when she discovers that he's a zombie. She then introduces herself as a magic-clad girl and tries wiping Aikawa's memories, but he just absorbs her magic alongside her clothes. Haruna follows him home, asking our boy to take responsibility for her powerlessness. Apparently, she's from the magic world, and she uses Aikawa's phone to contact her handler. Meanwhile, a megalo detects her presence. The next day, after school, our boy gets attacked by a megalo. He thinks the beast is gay until Haruna shows up and exposes its true form as a giant crayfish. She powers up, but immediately loses her magic, leaving Aikawa to defend her. He pummels the beast until his arm breaks. Haruna then suggests that he uses Mistletoe, her magic chainsaw. She makes him chant after her, and he gets fitted with Haruna's outfit, only for the megalo to call him a I agree. Our boy shamefully defeats the beast and ends up landing in the presence of all his classmates. They immediately bring out their phones to take pictures, and even his friends deny him. Haruna then comes forth and bestows upon him the title of a magic-lad girl. Luckily, Aikawa was able to erase the memories of everyone and continue to hide his queerness in plain sight. Anyway, come lunchtime, he realizes that Haruna made only fried eggs for him. They taste so awesome that it gives him shivers. His classmates then switch out all of their bread for a taste of Haruna's fried eggs. Upon getting home, he prepares dinner and continues to delude himself that the girls are being nice as he dishes out their rice. Suddenly, some strange cheek named Seraphim shows up, and Aikawa foolishly feeds her before asking who she is. She keeps mentioning the swallow reversal sword technique and then explains that she needs Hellscythe's help. Apparently, the bitch is a vampire ninja, whatever that means. Hellscythe tells him to send the stalker away, but Seraphim challenges him for a chance to be the necromancer's servant. They then head to the cemetery, where she forges a sword from leaves and cuts him down with it. She severs his arm and stabs him. He then headbutts her with 200% of his strength, sending her flying. She sprouts wings, only to get knocked down from the sky by Aikawa's severed arm. Sarah finally admits defeat and promises to leave. She lied. Aikawa meets her back at his place, and she reluctantly agrees to be his servant, rightfully calling him a piece of shit. Anyway, that night, she also draws attention to Hellscythe's feelings, and it reminds Aikawa of the day he met her. He had fooled himself outside a convenience store, and Hellscythe only expressed herself with a pen and pad. They had a nice time, but later that night, he came across the serial killer who stabbed him through the chest. Thanks to Hellscythe, he was revived, and she promised to stay with him from then on. Back to the present, and Haruna gets the shit slapped out of her for talking about death so lightly. As an apology, she hands some fried eggs to Hellscythe and runs to her room. It becomes the first outburst anyone has seen from Hellscythe. Haruna has a weird dream about a pudding monster and ends up struggling over the last pudding in the fridge with Hellscythe. They start by playing Jenga, and Seraphim joins in. Orito, Aikawa's friend, gets turned down by every girl alive. He then approaches our boy with tickets, and he agrees to go bowling with him out of pity. The girls move from Jenga to Mahjong, and then to Twister, with Hellscythe being the caller. They then decide to go out for lunch and pin the bill on Aikawa. Unfortunately, Aikawa realizes that the girls are at the same bowling alley with him and Orito. The dude is scared that people would think he's a for living with 3 girls. Well, too late. All 3 girls come over to say hi, and Aikawa wears a hideous mask to hide his face. It's pointless because Orito still ends up being mortified over Aikawa keeping the girlies a secret. Later on, he gets an email from Kyoko, who also happens to be a victim of the infamous serial killer. She also has a crush on Aikawa for some reason. They arrive at the hospital soon enough, and she's so elated to see our boy. It's just weird. Orito leaves to find a vase, and Aikawa discovers that Kyoko saw the killer's face. Unfortunately, she describes Hellscythe. As she and her jugs press against Aikawa, he continues wondering if Hellscythe could have done it. Haruna decides to cook something other than fried eggs this time, and she makes the mistake of pulling Sarah to the kitchen to help. The end product is no different from acid, because why would food melt chopsticks? Aikawa is forced to taste it because he's the only wuss present, and it knocks him out on the spot. After waking up, he immediately orders some pizza, mostly because the soup had eaten through the metal pot. Anyway, Cerberus Wansard, a Doberman claiming to be the gatekeeper of the underworld, shows up at Aikawa's doorstep to take back his soul. He manages to injure our boy, but he runs to Hellscythe, who heals him instantly. Cerberus chases after him, but sits like a good boy when he realizes that he's dealing with Madame Hellscythe. After wasting their tea, he decides to take the soul of someone getting killed that night. The sound of this perks up Aikawa's ears, and he follows Cerberus. On the way, he discovers that Hellscythe feels the same pain as whoever she's healing. They later meet that the soul they were chasing has been offered as a sacrifice to some king of the night dude, just so the serial killer can become more powerful. The killer appears and stabs both of them in one thrust, making Cerberus disintegrate. Aikawa later questions Hellscythe and discovers that she doesn't show emotion because it could mess with the strings of fate in her control. She also can't talk because her words carry magic and leave her with pain afterwards. She wears her gauntlets and armor to suppress said magic, and worse off, her powers will even continue working after she's dead, kinda like an eternal overtime. Hellscythe sheds tears and pleads to stay with Aikawa. He then encourages her to continue showing emotion and brags about taking care of the aftermath. Well, the aftermath is a whale with buttons big enough to crush a whole person. This leaves our boy with no choice but to summon his inner bitch. He and Sarah then fly up to the monster while Haruna tries to hold it in place. Sarah increases the size of her sword and cuts the surface of the whale's neck while Aikawa powers up. His dress becomes cuter and he unleashes an unholy force that rips off the head of the whale. On the flip side, Kyoko, maybe, kills herself? Aikawa peeps as Sarah and Haruna share a kiss. She then sucks Haruna's blood for sustenance. Later, the poor girl tries transforming into her magic lad form, but she ends up butt-naked and powerless. Aikawa stumbles upon this when he calls her for dinner, so she kicks him out, literally. After dinner, the girls take a bath together, leaving Aikawa to do the dishes. He then gets a call from Instructor Dai, Haruna's superior, and they get talking about the mission she had sent Haruna on. Apparently, she just wanted some tofu from Kyoto, and a foolish Haruna went to Tokyo instead. Our boy then offers to source some for her, and that's when Haruna returns from the bath. She then begs Aikawa to lie that she's not around. Anyway, he calls up Kyoko and plans a meet with her, unknown to him that all three girls were watching. He struggles through the next day and meets up with Kyoko in the cemetery, despite Hellscythe's warning not to leave. The girl shows up all boobylicious, and our boy loses his senses, only to get literally stabbed in the back. Apparently, Kyoko is the serial killer who has been terrorizing the neighborhood and also a magic lad girl. She freezes Aikawa in place, but before she can attack, Haruna and Sarah show up. Haruna frees Aikawa from the barrier, only for Kyoko to attack with a mighty flame that brings Sarah down. Haruna forces our boy to summon his inner bitch, and he launches towards her with his chainsaw. Aikawa soon gets caught in her whirlwind, but he manages to hold down Kyoko, creating a chance for Sarah to stab the pint-sized troublemaker through his back. Unfortunately, she doesn't stay down for long, and Hellscythe appears to clean up the mess. Kyoko tries hitting Hellscythe with fire, wind, and even lightning, but all of them just bounce off her barrier. She then grabs hold of the chainsaw and whispers the magic lad spell. She tells the others to stay back and takes the fight farther away from them. Kyoko continues to attack, each consecutive attack being higher in power than the last, all of which bounce off Hellscythe. The necromancer simply whispers the word, "Die," and it brings Kyoko to her knees, but the bitch has 10 lives, so each time she gets up, Hellscythe tells her to die. Kyoko bursts her eardrums, comes within arm's length of the necromancer, and unleashes her full power to bring her down. As she lays unconscious, Sarah and Haruna try attacking Kyoko in vain. Our boy then becomes a magic lad princess and absorbs all the attacks the bitch can dish. He comes close enough to mess with her head and uses the opportunity to kill her with his chainsaw. The problem is, he doesn't stop. Kyoko continues to scream as Aikawa kills her over and over until she's left with 1 life. He then pummels the ground beside her with enough force to pass her out. The wuss couldn't kill her. Instructor Dai shows up and calls Kyoko her student. She then gives Aikawa a taste of her flames after he shit-talks her about it. Just then, Kyoko wakes up possessed by the King of the Night, who only threatens Hellscythe and disappears. Dai then teleports as she chases after him. Later on, Aikawa and Hellscythe eat rice balls on the corridor, and she admits that she had made the King of the Night into a zombie before. She then adds that she had to kill him because he got consumed by magic. Our boy goes on to encourage her, and she confesses that life with them isn't that bad. Midterms are approaching, and Haruna teaches Aikawa string theory in place of a simple math problem. Hellscythe just does his homework for him, only for Haruna to ruin it and start guessing test questions. She ends up being right, though, and on the day of the test, she sticks to Aikawa's window to warn him about a megalo. After confirming from Sarah and Hellscythe, our boy runs under the scorching sun. As he does everything to escape sunlight, Instructor Dai calls and asks him to safeguard something fragile, adding that Haruna must never find out. Meanwhile, Haruna battles against a horse-type megalo who's only interested in sniffing her panties. Aikawa shows up before this can happen and knocks down the beast. Unfortunately, the sun drains him, and he has to transform into a magic-lad princess to cope. Jellyfish megalos show up soon enough, and they electrocute the shit out of Aikawa. They also don't discriminate between genders. They find their way beneath Aikawa's skirt, and don't leave after finding out he drives stick. A strange cheek shows up with pork chop ramen and uses it to disintegrate all of the jellyfish and even the horse megalo. Seraphim joins them in the alley and reveals that the strange girl is Maelstrom, a vampire ninja from an opposing faction. Aikawa seems taken by her, so they get into it. Haruna then pushes him out of jealousy, and he ends up kissing her and groping her jugs. We're supposed to believe that it happened by mistake. Both Haruna and Sarah beat the shit out of Aikawa, and afterwards, Maelstrom treats them to some ramen at their hideout. She then explains the creation process and shows them a machine made to rain ramen if there was ever a megalo invasion. As they leave, Sarah and Aikawa complain about the machine, and our boy finds out that vampire ninjas only kiss when they're getting married. Upon getting home, they're welcomed with Haruna telling them about Tanabata. She paints it as an R-rated version of Christmas with a hunky Santa and killer beasts for reindeer. They all write out their wishes, hang them on the bamboo outside, and feast on shaved ice. Some scary-looking girl, who you'll later know as Sarasvati, delivers a pair of glasses to Aikawa, but before he can try them on, Maelstrom brings him lunch. As she's yelling that they're now married, Orito recognizes her as Yoshida Tomonori. Apparently, he misread her name and calls her Yuki to correct himself. She then forces the glasses on Aikawa, and he realizes that it lets him see beneath people's clothes. Our boy gets run over protecting the glasses, only for Sarah to take them away. That night, Haruna dreams of doing dirty things with Aikawa and beats him up because of it. She even goes as far as cooking him seagrass for lunch. Later on, Kanami and Yuki talk in the showers. They take the convo to a restaurant where Kanami advises her to cook Aikawa lunch. She later adds that Yuki needs to be more cute and stop acting like a freaking dude. She presents the lunch to Aikawa, and it looks nice. She proceeds to ruin it by pointlessly pouring condiments on it. Meanwhile, Sarah gets a secret message that makes her look at Hellscythe suspiciously. After school, she shocks him, asking that they walk home together. Our boy agrees. As they walk, he begs her to stop calling him her husband, and she yells that it's impossible. Thankfully, she can't move in with him because she and Sarah play for opposite teams. No, they're not gay, just ninja enemies. They finally reach their breakoff point, and Yuki yells out her feelings for everyone to hear. This embarrasses Aikawa, only for Haruna to show up pissed. To ease her, he promises to take her shopping. Yuki asks to tag along, and our boy just decides to take all the girls out. They go shopping soon enough, and of course, Aikawa pays for everything. Worse off, he's the only one that carries the bags. He also takes them to a beef bowl restaurant to eat. Afterwards, Haruna asks why he kissed Yuki, and after admitting that it was an accident, he gets dragged away to play. Haruna later tracks him down later and asks him to kiss her too. When he refuses, she gives him the beatdown of his life. A strange man introduces himself to Hellscythe, and she's scared to see him. Haruna and Aikawa then rejoin the gang, only to notice that Hellscythe is gone. Hellscythe immediately stabs this strange man in the shoulder. Apparently, he's the king of the night, but in a different bodysuit. They then rehash the past, how they had been pretty close before she distanced herself from him. Meanwhile, Sarah opens up about being ordered to kill Hellscythe because her magic is behind the increased appearances of Megalo. Aikawa manages to pester her until she admits that she'll abandon the mission. Back to Hellscythe, the king of the night makes her watch as he almost crushes Aikawa with a Ferris wheel. Her emotions go haywire and a Megalo appears, attacking Yuki in the process. Instructor Dai then shows up. Sarah, Aikawa, and Haruna try everything to pull Yuki away from the Megalo, but it's pointless. Luckily, Dai shoots it out of the way. They all watch as a pyro beast emanates from within a subconscious Yuki and begins to attack them. Quickly, Dai summons the chainsaw for Aikawa, and he transforms into a magic-clad princess as Sarah holds down the fort. As Aikawa approaches Yuki, the beast shoots his leg. He then overhears his supposed wife begging for help as she sheds tears. This pushes the beast to activate self-destruct in 30 seconds. It's now a race against time, with Aikawa being electrocuted as he tries to reach Yuki. She begs him to give it up, but our boy stupidly hugs her with mere seconds on the clock. For some reason, emotion prevails where force could not, and the pyro beast disappears. Dai and the Night King commend Aikawa from a distance, and then the king electrocutes him for good measure. He suddenly disappears, and of course, Dai continues to chase him. Afterwards, Hellscythe returns to the gang, only to stop by a convenience store on their way home. The others go on ahead and later discover that it was goodbye. Our boy cries as he blames himself for Hellscythe leaving and gets kicked in the butt for encouragement. They all decide not to give up. The team had scattered to find information on Hellscythe and returned to the house one by one. A downtrodden Aikawa meets Haruna at home, but they admit that they found nothing. Sarah then joins them later and confesses that her fellow ninja attacked her for not killing Hellscythe. They're interrupted when Haruna orders a Stradivarius violin instead of some spaghetti. Yeah, she's a genius, but she's also dumb. Anyway, Sarah gives the violin a go, and it turns out she's quite good. Later that night, while sitting outside the convenience store where he met Hellscythe, Aikawa runs into the Night King. Sarah and Haruna join them soon enough, and our boy declares that he's going to kill the king. His mere essence attacks Aikawa, cutting off both his legs. The king proceeds to squeeze the life out of Sarah after she cut off his arm, just so that Hellscythe will return from the underworld. Sarasvati and Yuki show up with a bunch of other conservative ninja, and the Night King runs away like a little bitch. Yuki then glues Aikawa's legs together and goes after the king. Soon enough, our boy discovers that his legs were glued backwards, leaving Haruna no choice but to carry him home. The next day, Yuki gives him a call with the location of the Night King. He immediately alerts Haruna about it. Little do they know that Hellscythe is listening in on their convo. Sarah sees her outside, but gets attacked by the Night King, and just before Hellscythe leaves with him, she feeds Sarah some blood. After waking up, she tells the other two what she saw, and they run to the Night King's location, only to see him making dinner. The king serves all four of them, but only Haruna eats her food. All our boy wants is for Hellscythe to return, but the king refuses. Soon enough, Sarasvati and the conservative ninja surround the apartment, and the Night King straps a parasitic bomb on Haruna's head. He then jumps out the window with Hellscythe and disappears into thin air. They try to disarm the bomb, and when it doesn't work, Aikawa takes it and jumps out the window. He ends up exploding above the city. Sarah, Haruna, and Yuki go around town gathering Aikawa's body parts. They finally get them all, and they reattach themselves automatically. Unfortunately, our boy doesn't wake up. In truth, he's much too busy being a wuss and blaming himself for everything. Haruna then calls on Dai for help, and she sends her into Aikawa's subconscious. In this world or the next, trust Haruna to whoop Aikawa's ass into shape. She ends up crying before returning to the real world, though, but it worked. Our boy wakes up mere seconds after this. On the flip, Sarasvati hands Sarah a bag, telling her that she'll need it. Haruna and Aikawa then track Hellscythe and the Night King down and discover that he made her summon a megalo to destroy the world. All of this is because Hellscythe refuses to let the Night King die. Back to Sarah, Sarasvati told her that she's the only one that can seal the gates of the underworld because she has tasted the blood of Euclidwood Hellscythe, and she has to do this by playing a certain melody. Sarah finds a high point as a ginormous head leaks out lost souls and begins to play her violin to vanquish them. Meanwhile, the Night King begins to wipe the floor with Aikawa just to see the sadness on Hellscythe's face. The souls become too much for Sarah to handle, so she retreats. Haruna and Aikawa both transform into magic-clad princesses, with matching striped panties. Sarasvati and the other ninja all come out with instruments, and together they become a formidable orchestra. Haruna and Aikawa increase their power and finally land a blow on the Night King. Unfortunately, the after effects blow Haruna away. Our boy gets mad and begins to pummel the Night King mercilessly, so much so that his hand bursts through his head. Hellscythe then stops him, and the king begs Aikawa not to hate her when immortality becomes a burden. She then whispers a word in his ear, and the Night King disintegrates. At that moment, the gates of the underworld also come to a close. Afterwards, Aikawa expresses his selfish intentions to keep Hellscythe by his side forever. The necromancer then speaks for the first time, telling him that she'll do it, but it'll make him unhappy. The two of them hug it out, only for Haruna to land in front of them. They all head home as one happy family. The whole gang uses their lottery winnings for a day at the amusement park, complete with a pool, and they turn up in their swimsuits. Yuki, Kanami, and their friend who doesn't matter also join in the fun. Inspector Dai takes a break. Sarasvati turns out to be a rock idol, and the weak-willed Orito is a huge fan of hers. Aikawa can't believe his eyes, and Seraphim takes it worse. She approaches Sarasvati on stage and opposes the lifestyle change. They then strike an agreement that if Sarah can beat her in a performance battle, she'll stop. The performance begins, and the mindless crowd sways after them. Things get heated when Sarasvati changes her costume into something more slutty. Sarah wastes no time doing the same, and neither the fans nor I can complain. A very jealous Haruna bombs the stage after their performance and starts one of her own. For some reason, her craziness is what the crowd likes. Others hide their children from her blowtorch and chainsaw. Hellscythe also wants to sing, and Instructor Dai just pulls out a huge magic suction machine from her pocket. Aikawa then agrees to take on her oath of silence while she takes the stage. Hellscythe starts up a soothing song that leaves everyone engrossed, and when the suction machine runs out of juice, Haruna joins her on stage. They both use her magic and continue their rendition. Our boy gets carried away by how slutty Sarah is dressed and wishes that all ladies dress that way. Mistletoe, backed up by Hellscythe's power, then makes this a reality. All the girls turn against him and he gets his head bashed in. All in all, the team has a good time and life goes back to their excuse for normal.